Hello again. My name is Matt, and I'm an alcoholic. In our last video, we kind of touched upon what we're going to be talking about and what direction we're heading in. And again, welcome to anyone who either thinks they need to be here or wants to be here. A little bit about my story and how I got to AA and how it all came together for me was that I began drinking alcohol as soon as I was old enough to walk upright and steal it from other people's glasses. The first time that I remember ever being completely intoxicated was when I was a kid at a wedding. And I remember I drank several glasses of wine, and I remember feeling like I could fly. And I was running through the house and jumping, trying to fly. And each time I would hit the ground, and I'd get up and try it again. And from that point forward, I spent the most of my adult life chasing that first drunk because it felt so good. Alcohol was my new friend. When I was younger, I remember that I kind of felt like I was out of place. I didn't quite know where I belonged. Had that awkward feeling of, just thought that I showed up on the planet without an instruction manual because it seemed like everybody else was doing okay and living life fairly well without any effort. But for me, it just seemed like something wasn't quite right. I was a little different than other people and just didn't quite seem to fit. So for me, I drank because I liked the effect that alcohol produced. When I was drinking alcohol, I was the bravest, I was the most handsome, I was the best dancer. It didn't matter what it was, I thought and felt that when I was drinking, I was a much better person. Easier to get along with, easier to talk to, more sociable, and that's kind of where I was with my drinking. It was fun. It started out as a seemingly harmless activity, but then I started drinking heavily when I was probably around 21, because then it was legal. But I drank all through high school. Again, I drank whenever I could get it. I would pay people to go into the store and buy it for me when I was underage because I couldn't go and get it on my own. So we would hire bums or other people, and we'd say, hey, you buy us some alcohol, we'll share it with you. And that was kind of how I got through high school. Now for anybody out there who has other substances that they've experimented with, let me just say that that's okay, because I don't really know too many people who have only tried one thing. And, when alcohol was their drug of choice and they became alcoholic, it's pretty safe to say that there was a lot of other things that many of us tried and experimented with, myself included, but we're going to focus on the alcohol part because that's what this program is about. And there's other programs out there for other problems, and that's okay. But just for the alcohol part, we'll stick to the AA program. And for when my alcoholism became a problem for me was when it got to the point where every time I drank, I was unsure about what the outcome was going to be. And that was a little scary for me because when it started out being fun and, wow, this is a great social event and I can go out and do these things that I wouldn't normally be able to do because I felt awkward or out of place, all of a sudden that wasn't there anymore, and it was pretty frightening for me. I thought, oh, wow, how am I gonna do this? So I kept drinking anyway, thinking that somehow it was going to get better. Or if I just lay off for a few days and take a break, eat good foods, drink lots of water, just take care of myself as if I had a cold or some sort of illness, and then after I get over that, then I'd be okay again and that I'd be cured and ready to go on to the next drinking spree and somehow everything was going to be fine. Well, it never turned out that way. And much to my disappointment and much to my, it certainly wasn't due to lack of trying, but I was very disappointed because I thought, man, I missed it. I really liked the effect and I wanted to feel good. So I kept drinking long after I should have stopped. But the funny thing was is that when I got to the point where I realized, something's not right here, I couldn't stop by myself. I tried a long, long list of things, and I thought, well, I'll just drink beer instead of whiskey or hard liquor, and that should be okay. But it wasn't, because then I just drink 2-3 times more beer than most people would so that I could get the same effect. It was just switching one problem for another, thinking that somehow it was going to go away. And then it became more of a problem. And then I started to have what they call blackouts, where I would wake up and I would lose long periods of time and I'd not know what happened the day before, and wake up in strange places and not know how I got there, and sometimes behind the wheel of an automobile parked somewhere and not know where I was and how I got there, and that was very frightening for me. And there were times when I'd get up in the morning, go out and look at the car, make sure there's no dents in it or blood, or make sure I didn't hit anybody, and make sure the car was even there. And then I'd go on about my day. I got to the point where I was drinking on my way to work. Then I would take a nap at work, and then after work I'd go home and I'd drink some more. And I would drink till 1-2 o'clock in the morning, get up the next day at 6, and be ready for work again. And that was kind of how I lived toward the end of my drinking, and it was absolutely insane. That's just the best word I could use to describe it. But at the time I thought, hey, this is okay, I've got everything under control and there's no problems here. Well, there was a problem. And the problem was I have a disease and I didn't know how to manage it. And so I tried switching from one brand of alcohol to another. I tried laying off for a while. I tried all these remedies and gotten no real results. The longest I could ever go for not drinking was about 90 days. And then by then I'd be completely crazy and ready for the next drink because I just couldn't stand it anymore. Then I'd be off and running on the next spree, and each time I did this, things just got progressively worse. Never better, always worse. So when I finally got to the point where I realized that my life was completely unmanageable was on New Year's Eve of 1992. I was standing on a balcony, and I had this long string of firecrackers in my hand, and I had lit them, and I was holding them over the balcony, watching them explode. And when it got up to my fingers, I couldn't let go. And the thing started exploding in my fingers, and I could hear the sound, I could feel the explosions in my fingers, but I couldn't let them go. And in my brain, I'm thinking, wow, this isn't right. I could smell the flesh burning, and the firecrackers are going off, and I still couldn't let go of this string of firecrackers. And I can't even remember how much I had to drink, and then there was this big block of time I can't remember, and then I went home, and I went into my bathroom, and I lay down on the floor, and I had used that little mat that you use to get out of the shower, and that was my blanket. So I woke up the next morning, laying underneath a blanket on a cold tile floor after I had gotten sick, and I got myself up, and I managed to go to the sink to wash off my face, and I looked in the mirror and could hardly recognize the face that I saw in the mirror. I think that was at the point where I realized, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So a friend of mine took me to my first AA meeting, and this was down in the South, and I went to my first meeting on February 26th of 1993. And from that day until now, I haven't had any drinks of alcohol at all. And when I first got to AA, if somebody would have told me, man, you got to stop drinking for the rest of your life, I probably wouldn't have believed that it was even possible for me, because I couldn't go a day sometimes without drinking. There were times when I never would have thought that I would be able to stay sober for 6 months or a year, when now I'm almost to the 20-year mark, but it just never really occurred to me that I could stay sober. And I'm here to tell you that it is possible, and it is something that you can do. It takes a little effort on your part, and again, we're going to go through all of that stuff, but I just wanted to give you an idea that, some of the things that I say, if they start to sound familiar, or you start to say, yeah, I did that too, or I can relate to that, that's okay. That's a good thing, because I want to emphasize that only you can decide that you're an alcoholic, because no matter who tells you you are, and nobody tell me, for me, people told me all the time, hey man, you got a problem with your alcohol and you can't hold your liquor, and you're starting to embarrass yourself, and I don't want to hang out with you anymore, and I don't want to go anywhere with you because, I don't want to be your babysitter. I had to come to that realization that, there's probably something seriously wrong with what I'm doing here, because I'm hearing it from other people, but until I decided, then nothing really was gonna be fixable at that point. That old saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. That was definitely me. And until I decided, yep, it's time to stop, there was no hope for me. So I went to my first AA meeting, and then I listened to somebody who was talking about driving a vehicle under the influence, and he had ran over and killed somebody's 2-year-old child. And I was horrified. I was sitting in the front row going, wow, man, if this dude can stay sober, he's looking at prison time. He's waiting for his sentencing, and he's ready to take full responsibility for the fact that he killed somebody's child, and he's going to go to prison, but he decided to stay sober. And for me, I thought, wow, I don't know if I could have done that. But that was his choice. And I could see that even in the worst calamity, and even in the worst of circumstances, it was possible to stay sober. And I thought, wow, if he can do it, then I can do it. And that was enough to get the ball rolling for me. I went to the meeting, I got my little chip for the first 24 hours, and then I began doing the things that I needed to do to stay sober, and we're going to talk about those in the other videos. But again, that's just a little snapshot of my story to kind of get you thinking about, okay, well, is my drinking what most people would consider normal, and is my drinking becoming a problem in my life? Is it starting to affect my relationships? Is it affecting my job? Is it starting to cause me problems with other areas of my life? Is my health starting to suffer? Am I starting to do things that I wouldn't normally do? Is my judgment impaired? Am I going to places that I wouldn't normally go if I was not drunk? And then for me, I just had to really start to look at why I was drinking and what was my real motive. And that's kind of, like I said, just enough to kind of get things started. So I'll end the video with that thought, let you think about it for a while, and then move on to the next video. So I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. And again, if anybody needs any help or any questions, please send me an email. My email should be in the profile. If it isn't, it's Matt, M-A-T-T, sd.aa@gmail.com. And again, send me an email anytime, and look forward to meeting you in the next video. Thanks.